Let's get cracking then. So it's 1:02, so I think we'll start. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on a Friday. As I said, who does a webinar on a Friday, eh? We do a webinar on a Friday. Well, we know that you're not doing anything anyway, are you? Kind of sneaking around and shuffling bits of paper. I know you lot. Anyway, we've got some really very interesting things that we're going to talk through today. We're going to show you, we want to keep it nice and light. So effectively, I'm just going to kick things off, just give you a bit of a really quick overview of the agenda. Alex is then going to take you through kind of the contextual stuff to bring, just to sort of bring the topic to life a little bit. And then Shillen's really going to blow your mind with some demos. That's then going to bring all that kind of contextual stuff into life. And then I'll talk you through kind of the final last bits or your next action. So really, really very simple, really, really very light. Now, there is a chat function. So what I'm going to do is when I back off and finish and hand over to the guys, I'll sit there and I'll monitor the chat. So if you get any questions come to mind or anything like that at any point, just chuck them in the chat and I'll stop the guys when they're talking and I'll get the questions raised. All right. So we'll keep it nice and easy and simple like that. So we've got a really simple agenda for you today. So we're just going to take you through a little bit about HSO, what we're all about, just for those of you who don't know who we are. Then, as I say, Alex is going to take you through the kind of contextual, texty bit of the solution, to kind of give you a bit of an overview of what it's all about, how it came about, how it's relevant to you guys and the sort of problems it solves. And then Shillen's going to bring that whole piece to life with a couple of demos that's going to kind of just show you exactly what it's all about. So it's not just us or me banging on about it. It's actually real. It's being delivered or has been delivered, and therefore is something you can access straight away. And I'll give you a couple of next actions. And if you've got any questions at the end, then we'll flag those up. All right. So we are your team for today. So hello, my name is Michael Lonan. I'm the head of marketing here at HSO. So I'll be kind of your first port of call. I'll do the follow-ups. I'll send you the slides after and the recording afterwards as well. And so I'll be your main point of call. If you've got any questions after the webinar or anything like that, then I'm your main man. And then we've got Shillen. Say hello, Shillen.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Shillen Kimani here. I'm the enterprise architect here at HSO.
He's the technical brilliance and brains of the solution. And then we've got Alex Metcalf. Say hello, Alex.
Hi, everyone. Alex Metcalf. I'm the client director here, so I'm act as account manager for our public sector customers, and a lot of work with Gov360.
Cheers, Alex. All right, so I'm just going to hand over to Alex in just a second. One final thing to say is that I do want to send you the recording and I do want to send you the slides afterwards, but I can only do that if I have your contact details. So if you haven't double opted in when you registered for this webinar, then I cannot send you the session webinar, sorry, the recording and the slides, because I won't have your details because Socratim can't share them with us. So at the very end of this deck, I've got a QR code, which I'll flash up at the end. If you just put in your name and your email address, I can then send it to you if you hadn't double opted in. All right, so I just want to say that I can't send it to you unless I have your details. All right, so I'll stop flapping and I'll hand over to Alex, and Alex is going to take you through kind of this initial piece and bring it to life. All right, Alex, over to you, buddy.
Thank you very much, Michael. Are you running the slides? Next one, please. So HSO, we've been in existence since 1987, so it says more than 30 years. We'll get up to 40 years now that we've been going. We are a Dutch company originally, and now global with nearly 500 million in turnover last year. We are one of the top 3 global Microsoft Dynamic partners. And for the last 21 years, we've been an inner circle partner. So that's the top 1% of Microsoft partners, and we only do Microsoft. We don't let ourselves get distracted with other products. We just have laser focus on Microsoft. And as you can expect from one of the best Microsoft partners in the world, we've got every single designation. So with any elements of Microsoft, we can support our customers with. And inevitably, we get awards. We've been, like I said, part of the inner circle, top 1%. What that basically means is we're one of those partners that Microsoft do listen to. They are a huge global company, one of the top, biggest 5 companies in the world. but they actually listen to us when we talk to them. And we have received awards over the years. What we're going to be talking about is Gov360 today. And in 2024, we were a finalist because of Gov360. And then last year, we were the best partner in the world at delivering sales and customer insights, which is what Gov360 is built upon. But obviously, those are Microsoft awards. It's not just about what Microsoft say about us. This is independent research from Everest, and we are in the top quadrants for delivery. And we are not just a leader, we are also a star performer. And a lot of that is based upon the industry-specific solutions that we have. And Gov360 is one of those. Michael, if you just click, it will show and highlight where we are on the quadrant. So you can see there we are one of the top performers in the IT industry. And we are still owned by our founder, Peter Tomartin, but about 6-7 years ago, Carlyle took a 25% stake in HSO with the intention of growing our business and realising additional money for themselves. And Bain Capital took that over. That was all finalised in December. So they've made a £500 million investment in HSO with the intention for us to grow and expand. And the reason they've chosen that is they identified that Microsoft was the growth area for technology, and they've recognised that HSO is the best place for them to actually basically make money from the Microsoft technology stack. So that's why they've invested in HSO. And what that means is that we've now got the capital behind us, again, second set of capital for us to broaden out our service offerings and support our customers. So as you can expect, we don't just focus on the public sector. We work across industry. So what that means is that we can take the knowledge from all the different sectors that we support and serve, and we bring them across to the you guys on this call to public sector. So actually what we're doing is we're distilling the knowledge from across industry and bringing that to each of our solutions. And this is that solution suite that we've got that Gov360 is part of. So as you can see here, we've got it for wholesale and for rental and for manufacturing. So with this what we're going to talk about today is not unique to HSO. This is something that we support across sectors. And it wouldn't be a webinar, would it, if we didn't put some of the badges up of some of the people that we support. So some of my customers on here, South Gloucestershire, Newham and Greenwich Leisure. And then also we're a global company. So we support organisations across the globe as well, and work with our cross sectors, different geos to ensure that we absorb knowledge and support one another, which basically brings that knowledge into the solutions that we provide. So that's HSO, and now I'm going to talk to you about Gov360. The whole point of this is you invest money in your Microsoft technology, you buy the licenses, this helps you get more value from that investment. And effectively, Gov360, it's an accelerator. So what that means is, and forgive me for being blunt, every council is unique, every council is special, but the processes you do aren't special. Whether it be freedom of information, that's bound by legislation. We've got to follow the same processes. Complaints, the ombudsman, they've set out how those must be managed. So every council, yes, special, unique, but the processes you do aren't. And Gov360 enables you to actually have a set defined process that supports that and ensures that your council is operating to optimum efficiency. And it's out of the box solutions for you. It's set up in a way, sorry, carry on, Michael, thank you. It's set up in a way, so those blue areas, that's the out of the box, the standard Microsoft technology and functionality. What we've then done is we've built the government accelerator base, and that's a whole load of tables that are set up specifically to manage all of the processes that local government does. So you've got information governance. So we've got subject access requests, complaints, members' enquiries, freedom of information, environmental impact requests. We've also got in the pipeline, we've got licensing, environmental health planning. We've built a waste management solution. We're working on a pest control solution and recycling centre bookings. So all of the hundreds of processes that local government does, we can support and manage within Gov360. And what that does is that brings you that single version of the truth of your citizen, which Shillen's going to talk about when he shows you this, the actual solution. So, like I just said, jumps ahead a little there of myself, single version of the truth of the citizen. That's what our customers have told us. They recognise this is the start of, and as it builds out, you will see that's really important. One of the main things for your staff and for your users is it's just the same user interface. There might be a little bit of a change for each of the different processes, but when you come to it, it's really simple to use, and it reduces that brain power for your staff for when they're having to deliver the tech, deliver their processes. So working with technology is easier. They're not having to jump from system to system. Something they might do once a month, suddenly trying to remember how to use it. It's really easy for them to use. It's a fixed price implementation, and so you know how much it's going to cost, and it's one solution for your IT team to manage. So what we're doing is we're reducing that IT estate and actually making it simpler and easier for your IT teams to manage the technology. So you've got the modernisation of your services and your back office operations. It's using proven technology that Microsoft invest like insane amounts of money, and billions of pounds a year they invest in their tech. We've now got a minimum viable product for a finance solution. So there are very expensive IT platforms that have to buy that aren't designed for the local government. We've got something that now is, and that essential thing that is being pushed centrally, AI. We've got multiple agentic AI solutions, and as you'll see in a moment, we've got them for spread across industry, but we can implement something out of the box, but we can also work if there's a bespoke design that's required, and that's a really rapid deployment in a month or two for a new AI solution. And then we're continuously improving, working with our customers, listening to the people, because this is built with local government. So we've got some of our customers support us to ensure that what we're delivering for you is ideal and exactly what our local government actually needs. And as you can see here, this is a selection of the out-of-the-box accelerator agents that we've got. Now, would local governments use Sales? No. However, you can see how some of these different agents for time entry, perfect for certain solutions, certain processes. The official InfoAct request email agent, that's built for the New Zealand equivalent of our Freedom of Information Act. We are looking at how do we build that into this solution for you. So what we're talking about today is that Gov360, it's set up and it is designed for and built with AI in mind. Now, you've probably had enough of me talking. Now over to Shillen for the important bit, which is what you want to see is the actual solution itself. Shillen?
Perfect. Thanks for that, Alex.
Welcome.
Let me just take over the screen. Perfect. Okay, so we've heard Alex talk about the solution Gov360, but let's bring it actually to life. And what I'm going to do is show and walk you through 3 demo scenarios. So we're going to go through the freedom of information process. So this is going to look at receiving a request. What does that look like in the system? Validate and collect the information on the request and then issue out a response. We'll then look at a member's inquiry process. So how do we log the inquiry? What does that look like? How do we then allocate the request or the inquiry to a service department to go and investigate and collect the information and provide the information back, and then issue the response. And then lastly, we'll look at a complaints process. So we'll log a complaint, review and distribute some of the complaint points to the different service areas, and then issue the response. And hopefully you'll start to see sort of a consistency in how the solution works in terms of usability and experience as well. So what I'll do is let me switch over to the solution itself. There you go. Okay, so one thing to bear in mind, and one thing that's important as part of the design in Gov360 is we've built it in a way that is all orientated and tailored around being able to provide and allow for that 360-degree view of the citizen. So what I'm seeing here on the current screen is a contact of Adam Brown. He's a resident of the council, and we're able to then supply and capture certain information about him. Now we've got some basic contact information, we've got some address, and Adam's going to be our dummy contact for the demo itself. But what more importantly is certain information that we may want to track that's quite relevant to the services that we're providing to him. And we can track and record things like alerts, which is what you're seeing in the middle of the screen. And these can be very much anything that you define as important information that is valuable for people to be aware of that are interacting with the citizen, Adam Brown. So in this case, we've got a warning to just let people know that he's got a big dog at home. So anyone doing house visits, well, we know that there's a big dog at home, so you don't want to probably send someone who's scared of dogs or allergic to animals. We can see there's some medical information we want to be wary of, wear a face mask, etc. when we're interacting with them, and then financial difficulties they may be facing. So maybe want to be careful with some of the wording and how we're approaching them. These are very much configurable and subject to how the council want to record certain information about the resident and how it would help support the interactions that you're going to have with them when dealing with their requests coming into the desk. We've also got an area for sensitive data. So we know that not all data should be available to everyone and anyone in the council. So we're able to separate some sensitive data on Adam's record and capture this separately, but also apply security roles and measures to make sure that only the right people with the right access rights can access this type of data. So things like ethnicity, religious beliefs, disability or medical information, any care that we may have associated to them, we're able to track and put some security measures behind that. And then lastly is the related and history records of Adam Brown. So every interaction that he's having with us, we've got a full history of those through the 360 experience. So on the right hand side, I can see a list of all the different cases that he's raised across the last 6 months, or I can look at different years. We can then start to also track things like documents. So if they've restored, if he's provided evidence-based information, photocopies, address, etc. We're able to store that within the document repository, and then also things like connections. So if we've got insights into Adam's connections, so people he's related to or people that he's often interacting with or act on behalf of, then we can map that as part of his profile to give us a full picture of how we're interacting with Adam as a citizen and the people who may be able to act on behalf of him at times as well. Now, with all this information, we can then start to raise cases off the back of that to fully enrich that. So let's have a look at the FOI process. So if I go to my FOI record, so classic Blue Peter fashion is what I created earlier. Here is what we're seeing on the screen, an FOI request that's come in. So in this scenario, Adam Brown has emailed into our FOI mailbox requesting some certain information across different services. Now, what the email has, or what the interaction of the email landing into the mailbox has done is generated this case record with the request reported by associated to Adam Brown's email, and his contact record. We can then also see that it's of type information governance, and the information and the service type is FOIs. And it starts to extract information from the email and populate it into some of the records. And on the right-hand side, on the bottom of the screen here, you can see a timeline. So this is the original communication. So that email that originally came into the mailbox in the case record. So I can then go ahead and read this, have a history and have a copy of it. And if I'm sending any information or emails back and forth, I've got a nice timeline view of all those different interactions, touch points recorded against that one record. So in this case, he's requested certain information around different services. Now, as part of the process, we need to make sure that we're hitting certain times and deadlines in order to meet our requirements. So to be able to do that, what we've got and implemented is a feature called the SLO, which are these timers on the right-hand side to make sure that you're abiding by the obligations that a council has when an FOI request, in this case, comes in. So in this case, the request has come in. I've got a certain amount of time to be able to send my acknowledgement email or letter back to Adam to let them know that we're working on the case. And then I've also got a time for my response that I need to go back with. And this whole process of being able to capture and identify and move the request forward is supported by what we're seeing on top of the screen, the business process flow. And what this helps us do is, as an information governance officer, I can use these steps to identify where things are in the process, and then also capture key information such as the acknowledgement date, which are triggers to then succeed my SLAs or certain actions that need to be performed before I can proceed to the next stage, in this case, research. So I'll move my stage to the research stage, and at that point, as an FOI officer, I can go ahead and look at the request, see what they're requesting, and who do I need to allocate certain questions to. Now, the way we would allocate questions to different departments is through our questions tab, where we can split out each individual question to a department. So if I go into one, you'll be able to see that with each question split out, I can add what the question was from the email into the question box. And there's an area and a response section for the service department that's been allocated to this. Now, the way we'd allocate the service department is through the departments field, and then we can allocate an owner to this. Now, what would happen is if we've split out all of our questions and we've then got to a point where we're ready to then distribute these questions to the service owners, we're able to then do this through a consolidated email, which will then give the service owners a email with a summary of the questions that's being asked, the response due date that they need to do by, and a link to the specific record. So this will give them a single record, which looks something like this, or a single email, letting them know that they've got requests allocated to them. Here's a link to those requests, and then if they can do it by the set date. Those links will take them to this page here, and they will be able to provide the response into this box further down. Now, if these records have not been touched for a period of time, let's say the request has come in, it's been allocated to a person, and it hasn't been touched, and we are nearing sort of +5 days since the request has been raised, then automated emails will then follow up just to let them know that these requests are still outstanding, you've got them open, update them so they're in progress. And the way we'll do that is simply just change the status from in progress to then stop those emails to let information governance know that they're working on it, or alternatively, if they have completed them, then they'll be able to set them as inactive and then completed for those answers responded to. However, there are some cases where in councils, quite a lot of repetitive questions come in. So rather than sending the same questions to those service departments over and over again, why can't we provide capabilities to the Freedom of Information officers to be able to search for frequently asked questions so they don't necessarily need to allocate those questions to the service departments? Well, this is where we can then start to leverage and expand some of the capabilities of the Microsoft stack using things like AI and Copilot to be able to generate and fetch that information if it's already been stored and recorded. So the way we'll do that as an example is through our native Copilot capability within D365, I'll be able to, let's say, take the question in question, post it into the Copilot, give it a send and see if it's been answered previously and what was the response. And that way I can provide that into the response section and then use that as my output. So while it's fetching that, it's going to look at the repository of previously answered questions, and also any repositories that we point the Copilot to.
Shilan, before you move
Yes.
into the next step, this question is probably relevant to the process you're going through now, so I think it's probably worth asking now. And the second one from Colin, we can probably leave it to the end with Alex. So if we have, so the question is this from Will, if we have had a similar FOI request previously, can the solution tell us and take us to the previously given information to save us then duplicating work? Or if the info is available on our website, could this show us where that information is?
Absolutely. So it can do. We would obviously need to figure out what the best approach is in terms of the process and configuration of the solution, but there's not, absolutely, the solution is more than configurable to be able to sort and cater for those scenarios. And similarly, what we're just seeing here is that those answered questions previously, we can then leverage things like the Copilot in this example and say, well, there's actually an answer previously been provided. We can just use that rather than recreating and resending answers to the same people over and over again.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
No problems. Perfect. So if I then say, right, I provided the answer for this one we can actually close down and then set that one as completed and give that a save and close. What you'll then start to see from a summary of all those FOI questions that have been sent or have been allocated, the tab will give you an overview of anything that's been sort of new or or completed, which departments are still outstanding with what their questions are and who those owners are. So if we need to do any sort of follow-ups, chases based upon the SLOs or any supporting actions, then we can keep on track of those through some of the metrics that we're seeing here. However, let's say all the questions and answers have been provided, and we're now ready at a point where we want to provide a response back to, in this case, Adam Brown. We can then start to leverage some of the templating capabilities, so in this case, the Word templates, to export the FOI requests into a templated format to be able to then allow us to then take those questions, take those answers and put it into in this case, a templated letter where we can then either email out or print off and send it off to Adam. Let's expand that out. By extracting the information from the case record with the information provided and satisfying their request. That will then all be logged and managed within that case record. So we've got a full history of it. So if we ever need to go back and look at any comebacks or any history of an FOI that's been sent, then we've got the full timeline of activities and information all in one place. So that's FOIs. What I'm going to do now is move on to members inquiry. So in this case, we're now looking at a members inquiry screen. So what you'll notice is that it's taking a similar look and feel in terms of the summary of the members inquiry request on the left-hand side. We've got a summary of the members inquiry information in the middle of the screen, the SLO timers on the right-hand side, and then the questions and the timeline at the bottom of the screen. So in this case, the members inquiry, slightly different to the FOIs, is where in this scenario, Adam Brown has met up with a member, a council member, and has raised a concern around some general waste and some miscollections over a period of time. So using that scenario, that has come through from Adam to the council member, Alex Matthews, we're actually able to record both interactions with both people. So our case management system allows us to track Alex Matthews, who's the council member, who's reported it on behalf of Adam Brown. So we're tracking it against the resident who's raised it to him. And we're able to then start to use the same capabilities and the same process to be able to raise the questions. So in this case, I've got my question that has been raised from Adam Brown to the council member, add my question in here, and then any desired resolutions and then the responses. So question in this response can be managed in multiple ways. It could be done by the information governance officer on behalf of the council member, or alternatively, if that service department wants to interact with the council member directly, then it could be a hands-off touch point from an information governance team to be able to manage and track this. However, it will again want logged all within the system. So the process may have off-system activity. So it may be that a service activity needs to happen for a new collection through that department. That can all be updated and managed by whoever has been allocated to. So in this case, let's say the response is an emergency collection is done. And then, like how we saw previously, we can update the statuses to inactive and say that one's now completed. Now, if there's any safeguarding issues or any other anything else related to safeguarding, we can also capture that and then also add in additional and contextual information regarding those types of issues raised. What that will do is then, again, by completing those outstanding questions, any automated emails, any automated communications going back, or any maintenance reminders will not be triggered outside the system. So that will stop any of those chase ups happening. And then also it will then make sure that from an SLO timer perspective, we're actually responding to the request based upon the agreed times as part of our obligations. So what you're starting to see is a notice of a consistent experience around how each one of those service types are being interacted with the information being captured, the process flow supporting the start to end process, but also the mechanism of collecting information out from the system to the service departments.
I have a question, Shillan, for you.
Yes.
Go in there because these are quite interesting and relevant here. So the first one's actually related to the previous one. So is there a way that FOI responses can be published so members of the public can search or retrieve their results? That's the first question.
So yes, they can do. We would need to look at how you would want to publish it and an approval process to make sure that you're happy with what's being published out. But with the data available within the system, it's all accessible and we can push it through to different locations, whether it's a website, whether it's a certain page. It's all possible. The data is all there.
Brilliant. Thanks. Hopefully that answers the question, Colin. And the second one from Claire. Can the system redact PII where appropriate and then deflect towards previously provided answers or published sources of information when the first point of contact was made?
Redacting, we'll probably need to look at that in a bit more detail. At this moment in time, it's essentially taking previously responded answers, or you'll be able to fetch for previously responded answers. Any redacting of information would probably want to get some sites over it to make sure that it's not fully automated and it's actually got some human element to it, to make sure that the data that is being recorded and captured is available and is able to be captured. But yes, we'll probably need to look at that into a bit more detail.
Good. All right, thanks, mate.
Love it. Okay, so the third scenario that I wanted to cover off is the complaints process. So what I'll do is go into my complaints record. So what you'll see here is now a complaints record. So once again, Adam Brown is our citizen who's raised a complaint. He's sent an email into the complaints department mailbox, and that's gone and tracked that email into the system with the case record. Now, we're aware that in recently there's a slight change in how complaints are being handled, especially with the ombudsman process. So we're currently in the process of updating that. So what you're seeing on the system might still reflect the older process, but absolutely by the next few weeks, we'll have this all updated with the new process. So essentially what you'll see is the two-stage of the complaints process and then the ombudsman if it needs to be sent in there. So the way that will work is very similar to what we've seen previously. Is you've got Adam Brown raise the request or raise the complaint. Now a complaint will start off in this case as a concern. So we want to validate, well, is it an actual complaint or is it a service failure that we can rectify at this moment in time? And at that point, we can then start to capture what was the concern or at this initial stage. So was it regarding a certain department? Was there any identification required as part of that process? Details about the complaint and how they would like it to be resolved. Now, if it's to do with safeguarding, there's additional rules in place to apply for those scenarios as well, built in as part of the logic into the system. Now, in this case, let's say Adam Brown, he's raised a complaint to say that he's missed a bin collection, and it's not the first time. He's reported it previously, and it's now happened again. So rather than it being a service fault at this point, he now wants to use his right to actually escalate it into a complaint itself. So, or as a complaint itself. So that way we can use the system to be able to then drive it through to the different stages. So at that point, with a complaint, we can extract out what the exact complaint points that he has. So what we saw previously in terms of what is it that he's complaining about. So the complaint details, the desired resolutions, and then we've got a timeline of all the activities of the back and forth. Not with this complaint actually happening at this point in time. We'll be able to go and investigate with the waste department on what happened, why was their collection missed off, and within the outcomes and resolutions tab, we're able to then provide the details around what the response was, any outcomes to that, and then the resolution that was done. So we'll be able to use that, provide that information back to Adam Brown, and if he still isn't satisfied and happy with that process, we'll be able to then start to move our complaint through to the different stage 1, stage 2 processes, and finally into the ombudsman. So we'll be able to have in the stage 1 an internal the service department reviewing what happened when it entered the stage 1 process in terms of the dates, how long have we got to respond by, what was the actions, and what was the response. If it still isn't, if it still doesn't satisfy Adam Brown's request, then we can move into the stage 2 process, where we will get another department to then review the outputs and investigations. So in the stage 2 process, information where we can start to capture in terms of when it entered in, what was the outcomes, the details, and the departments that did the review as part of that process. And then finally, if it still doesn't satisfy Adam Brown's process, Adam Brown's concern or complaint, then we'll be able to then move into the ombudsman process, where they'll be able to then do their investigation, and we'll be able to then start to capture their outputs as well. So who the officers were, what was the evidence, and what was the outputs that the ombudsman provided, and then any other further information that we need to capture about that. We can also reopen the case. So if the complaint was closed and then the ombudsman came back to us later on, we can also open up the case with the ombudsman's information that they provided once the case was closed initially from outside, and we've completed our process. So with all this in place, that then goes all back to essentially that one thing. System is driving that single experience. No matter what services that we're looking at, it will drive sort of that consistent experience in sort of user processing and interactions with the system, but most importantly, tying it back to Adam Brown as a resident, so anyone interacting with him can see that full 360-degree view of him, of all his interactions, all in the one place and all in one system. And as you then start to look at expanding your services, this will then further enrich the information that we have around Adam and how the council is interacting with him, not only from information governance, but also any other modules that you may be interested in at a later stage.
Cool. Thank you, Shalom.
No problems.
All right. So I hope that was clear. I hope you could see the process flow from the first engagements all the way through, depending on which service you were most focused on. But the thing, I was trying to snapshot it actually, but I didn't manage to get it. But if you could see down in the bottom left-hand side of Shilling's demo screen, you could see the services laid up. So you had complaints, FOIs, SARs, effectively in the same screen. So the whole point is you're able to manage these processes, these services within, as we said at the very beginning, within this one sort of UI experience, making it much easier for your staff, for you to manage those processes and get them kind of responded to. So it doesn't, you're not, as Alex said earlier, you're not going off to different systems, you're all doing it in one place. So there are some very, very easy next steps. Okay, so you've seen the solution, you've heard us talking a little bit about it. So the next step would always, in our world as a service organization, would be to take on some sort of assessment. But I put this on there to say basically that this is all well and good, and we'll take you through these roadmap assessments and all this sort of stuff, but that comes much later. The thing that really, just to start things off, is just to have a chat. All right, so the first things first, and this is always how the first engagement starts, just a quick 30 minutes chat to find out, okay, so what are you doing at the moment? What are the problems? What are the pain points? What do you want to try to achieve? And then our guys can then kind of align to those particular points and line the solution up to it. And then we will then move into sort of the demos once we understand what your needs and requirements are and do something that's a bit more bespoke, a bit more specific. So there's a couple of things I want to kind of finish up with. So as I said to you at the beginning, I want to send you the slides and I want to send you the recording and I want to hook up with you and make sure that you've got our contact details for future reference. If you haven't double opted in, then please do hover over the QR code and just fill in the 4 questions that's in there. Basically, you name your organization, the email address, so I can send you this stuff. So I'll just leave that there for a second because there were a good couple of questions that came into the chat. So I just want to highlight some of that. So the first question, I'll come back to it, was from Colin. So Colin asked, does this mean that everyone needs a Dynamics license to use the FOI solution? Alex, I think you're going to pick that one up.
I will pick that up, and the answer is no, not everyone needs a Dynamics license. We recognise that Dynamics licenses are a big investment. So some people, in a previous job, I used to respond to FOIs, and I might do 10 a year. I do not need a Dynamics license. I need a Power App license to be able to do that. The only people that need a Dynamics license are the people who are actively managing the information governance processes. So it wouldn't need to be everybody in your organization, just the people who manage them. Hope that answers your question, Colin.
Thanks, Alex. Claire's got a good one here. So can the system find subject material pertinent to the FOI, such as using AI to search across existing files rather than a council officer searching?
I like this question. This is the kind of thing that gets me excited. Yeah, I'm a nerd. Sorry.
It is Friday.
It is Friday. So, and this is where we would leverage AI. So, and you followed it up, Claire. I've read you follow up. Yes, sending out that holding email with links to the frequently responded to FOIs, that's dead easy. What I would, and what the dream step and where we'd love to take this is, rather than your FOI come into your team, them do the assessment, work out who to send it to in your organization, and then send it to them for them to then, out of their busy day, because it always goes to somebody senior to try and work out what it is, and then send the response, somebody redact it. We actually use AI to do all of that. And that process, that assessment, the creation of it, it does it all itself automatically and then sends it on to that business owner who doesn't have to do much thinking beyond, yes, that FOI about potholes, that FOI about bin collections, that information that the system has generated is correct. They then send it back to the FOI team for them to actually then ensure that there isn't any PII, make sure that there isn't any anything in that full human being checking, because you can rely on AI, but you shouldn't always trust it, and that's where we want to take it. So that's the vision for where we're going to. I hope that answers your question, Claire.
All right, Claire's got another good one here. So the question is this: when an email from a service user is received, will the system send a holding email and/or direct them to relevant information on a government page, on their government page, so the inquiry can be resolved without further contact, if possible, but record as an FOI request and officer support is needed? So it's a bit of a long, complex one, Shillen. It's probably for you. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's as Alex I'll touch upon it. It is absolutely possible. The systems and the AI models are available to be able to do such things. We'll just need to configure it up as part of the accelerator to make sure that it works and it's pointing to the right sources that we want to use as our reference data.
I think the message there is highly configurable. We don't want it to be customizable or particularly customized. We just want it to be nice and easy to come out of the box. As Alex said earlier on, it's out of the box. It's easy to deploy. You take the modules as you need them. You don't need to buy them all. Or, you don't need to implement them all at once. You can just do what your organization needs at that time as needs dictate. So thank you, Claire. So hopefully that was useful. Hopefully gave you a bit of, I know it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. We'd love to show you in a little bit more detail. We can go into more specific depth. As I said to you, once we speak to you, we can kind of pick into where your requirements are and then give you something that's far more bespoke to your organization. But at least hopefully that gave you a bit of an idea. And what I'll do is I'll follow up with you afterwards. I'll send you, as I say, the slides and the recordings for those who've provided their details. But we'd love to talk to you about this in a little bit more detail. Honestly, it's just such a cool system and so very easy. I would say that, wouldn't I? Given that I'm from HSO, but I'm in marketing, not in sales, so you can take that as you want. So final things to say is thank you for joining us on a Friday. The very, very good news is you're over halfway of the Friday, so you're closer to the weekend than you were when you got up this morning. I just want to thank Alex and Shillen for taking the time to chat with you. Hope you all got something useful from the session. And guess what? Enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you soon, hopefully. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Shillen. Bye-bye.
Thank you.